Hi everyone and welcome back to SwitchUp and to a review I know lots of you will have been waiting for. A thanks to Azdin of Glen Games who has worked with us to get a full and complete picture of what Pokémon Scarlet and Violet brings to the Nintendo Switch, as well as what it doesn't. Fans of the 26-year-old monster collecting and battle franchise have been truly spoiled with the release of Legends Arceus earlier this year, and now Scarlet and Violet. The 9th generation takes place in the Chaldean region, which is loosely based on the Iberian Peninsula. Is it Ash finally finding the one for him, I choose you, or is he repelled by something that looks ghastly? Well, let's find out. The story begins in the south region of Paldea, where your characters travel to the Academy in time for the annual treasure hunt. Depending on your version, Scarlet will have the Naranja Academy or the Uva Academy in the Violet version, and in a traditional Pokemon manner, each will have its unique roster of monsters, among other minor things. It's there you'll meet Nemona, who will be your rival in this game, and thankfully she wasn't as bothersome as some other rivals have been in previous titles, and instead encouraged the player to explore Paldea and find their own treasure. This is where the 3 stories open up for the player to experience and try out more than just the gym battles of old. These do see a return, although there's also Starfall Street, which is this generation's version of Team Rocket, and has the player facing off against a gang of rebellious students called Team Star. Lastly, the Path of Legends will see you looking and battling the Titan Pokemon in hopes of obtaining the Herba Mystica. As always, you begin by creating your character, and you leave your home and choose one of the 3 starter Pokemon. The first hour is a tad slow as you go through all the obligatory first steps into this new world. Once you reach the capital city, you'll take part in the yearly treasure hunt. This city acts much like a hub that connects most of the map, which is huge. How you tackle your adventure and in what order is pretty much down to you, as you're free to explore most of the map from the get-go. The only caveat is that the further you are from the city, the stronger wild Pokemon will become, which act as a warning to those wanting to explore further when ill-prepared. It can become slightly daunting to set off and choose what story path to tackle first, but it is this freedom, combined with the scale of the map, that becomes a welcomed innovation to the franchise. The Academy functions in a similar way to the gameplay of Persona 5 set in the school, where you'll attend different classes, answer questions, and gain rewards. It also is a great place to learn about specific mechanics, such as shiny Pokemon encounter rates. Cooking or food preparation returns in the game, with the player setting up a picnic that lets his Poke Pals out of their balls to share that bocadillo. And there are a myriad of ingredients, each of which provides its own power booster, ranging from increasing the catch rate of certain Pokemon types, or indeed the spawning of a certain type. This new system has become a great way to get bonuses which aid in your daily tasks, especially when hunting down specific Pokemon, like the new Dragon or Ice Frigibax. Preparing and eating the right sandwich increased the spawning of Dragon-type Pokemon significantly, with them being everywhere. Now, breeding has also changed dramatically. Ever since its debut in Gold and Silver back in 1999, there are no old folks running a Poke daycare in this region, and on the plus side, the picnic has a basket that may give the player a pleasant surprise if 2 of your monsters are compatible. Again, as with all the previous quality of life improvements, it's great streamlining and necessary to improve that 26-year-old formula. As for flagship Pokemon, this time it's Koraidon or Miraidon, depending again on the chosen version. This not only becomes your main form of transportation by the end of the game, but also acts as a companion, not dissimilar to Toothless from How to Train Your Dragon. Let's touch on the 3 different adventures that make up the treasure hunt. Each is different from the next and has their own storyline, as well as unlocking more activities and abilities as you progress. They can be tackled virtually in one go, if you have the right resources or mix up those that you do have. The Path to Victory Road is your classic quest through the different gyms to become the Elite 4 champion. Although the gyms will have trials similar to the ones in Sun and Moon, which become a bit more of a chore, to be honest. As you defeat more gym leaders, higher leveled Pokemon in your possession will become obedient, as well as unlock more activities within the Academy. Then there's Starfall Street, where an anonymous person asks that you reach each of the Team Star hideouts and defeat the rogue students. You'll have to enter all of those hideouts and defeat 30 Pokemon via the Let's Go mechanic before time runs out. It offers a nice change of pace, but I personally didn't feel too challenged or excited by that concept. But your efforts efforts here do not go unrewarded. The path of Legends was probably the most enjoyable and fruitful, as the storyline was decent, and defeating each of the Titans unlocked a traversal ability for Koraidon, which made exploring new areas of the map much easier. There are different types of Pokemon everywhere. Just as you leave your house, for example, you'll be able to find different types, both old and new, especially if you explore thoroughly. These appear in the environment as they did in Legends Arceus, albeit in greater numbers, with some aggressive and others passive. Battles are initiated by coming into contact or throwing one of your Pokemon at them and landing a hit which will catch it off guard, giving you a slight advantage. They're still turn-based with the classic 4-move system, but the omission of the battle initiation screen makes the experience feel more dynamic and real. And here are some great quality of life improvements as well. Any moves learned by your Pokemon can replace old ones as per usual, although if you cannot decide which to lose, you can skip it and add it whenever you want, or just press X to ask your Pokemon for advice on what to do next. This one small change mitigates the backtracking fatigue from previous titles, plus it encourages the player to experiment with moves or a combination of them for your Pokemon pal, and this also applies to naming them. Then we have the Let's Go functionality, which sees the player releasing the first Pokemon in their party, which will attack any wild Pokemon within its range. These will trigger an instant battle, which lasts a couple of seconds and rewards less experience points. It's a great way to collect dropped materials needed to create technical machines, as well as grinding for smaller amounts, but it's important not to put them into situations where they'll get overpowered. One more prominent new mechanic is the crystallization of the different types of Pokemon, known as the Terrastall phenomenon. This adds a somewhat extra level of complexity to the battles, since now a Pokemon can change its type whilst using its standard moveset, with any moves of the same type being more powerful, and when found in the dens in the wild, these Pokemon need to be beaten up until they are at death's door, which is when the Terra power disappears and they become catchable. And yes, your own Pokemon can take advantage of this new mechanic, although it can only be used once per battle, and you'll need to rest your Pokemon at the medics before it will be usable again. So gameplay wise, everything's looking good, and controls are also decent. However, the camera can be a little finicky during battles. There are similarities here between Zelda's transition from its classic action-adventure formula to the open-world RPG we now know in Breath of the Wild. Unfortunately, the other side of the coin, and what really lets it down, is the now well-documented complete lack of polish and testing. Let's just say it's extremely disappointing for the world's largest grossing media franchise, with the goal of creating immersive gameplay experiences for children and adults alike, to perform in this way, but we'll go into that in the next section. As for gameplay though, well, it's the best Pokemon we've had so far. Gameplay scores 17 out of 20 and actually drops a couple of points because the performance affects that. As for controls, bar a slightly shonky camera, they score 16 out of 20. As way of a disclaimer, the visuals and performance section here is my honest observations upon playing for over 30 hours. The visuals and scope of the world are great and colourful, but again, the constant popping, low textured assets, frame nosedives, animation inconsistencies and glitches are just the tip of the iceberg that sank the Titanic. The whole thing feels unfinished overall, and while the majority of the aforementioned issues don't really impact the gameplay, and thankfully I haven't experienced any of those online bugs where players fall through the floor, it feels at this stage until they patch it like only a matter of time. The font size is thankfully decent overall, and I personally enjoyed the soundtrack, especially the music playing during the gym leader battles, with the chorus kicking in and the last one, similarly to the rowdy football fans from Sword and Shield. Some of the special effects can grate after a while, as well as some of the songs becoming a tad repetitive, but audio was decent for the most part. Visuals and performance score 4 out of 20, while sound and audio scores 16 out of 20. Each of the versions can be had physically or digitally, with the eShop price of £49.99 or your regional equivalent, and it's going to require a 7GB download. A physical version is available for most retailers, and as always you can usually find that for a bit cheaper. Being a first party title and a Pokemon game at that, a premium price is to be expected though, particularly before Christmas. Having personally paid the full price and enjoyed my playthrough, somewhat begrudgingly I would strongly recommend you wait for a sale, giving them time to iron out the issues. Had this been performing flawlessly, it would be a very different review across the board from almost every Pokemon fan. As it stands though, value scores 10 out of 20. As an original Pokemon fan, the year started on a high with Arceus and the announcements of things to come. That came in the form of Scarlet and Violet, and on paper at least, it looked like everything I wanted. It may be age or nostalgia, but to have seen the franchise grow over time and introduce new species and gameplay, as well as settings inspired by real countries, has been one of the greatest aspects of the series. Unfortunately though, we've also had to become accustomed with a bitter business practice that of releasing and then patching later. It becomes an incredibly difficult pill to swallow when that company is one of the richest in the world, certainly within gaming. And it's not an exaggeration to say that I truly hate to see what probably is the best Pokemon formula to date released in such a poor state, and to then become the best-selling game of the year in most regions. This is paradoxically the best and worst Pokemon game ever. It gets a SwitchUp score of 63%. Excellent work by Azdin. It's so nice to have the review written by a true Pokemon fan who's basically played all of the games, put his heart and soul into this one and loved it, but also hated the way it's been treated. Let us know in the comments what you think of this one. If you want to save 10%, if you are going to buy any games, you can use code SwitchUp over at switchup.gg to buy your eShop vouchers. And thanks to our Patreons and members, and as always, for all things Switch all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!